Well, I uh, I got a text last week, and it was a very simple one. Hey, I know that you wanted to share your testimony at some point. Would you like to do it? Sure. Okay. That was it. That's all I heard about. And then I got an email. Then it said that I was going to be talking up front. Here I am, lo and behold. I put a lot of thought into what I was going to say. I don't know if I truly knew what I was going to say up here. It's one of those things where you're never really sure what you're going to say until you get up there and say it. A testimony. A testimony is something that's supposed to be a representation of something. If I were to give a testimony on my beliefs of one thing, then it'd be a representation of those beliefs on it. And so, I suppose with the bulletin saying that I'm giving just a standard testimony, I guess that means I have to start with the beginning of it all. All right? My relationship with God, how I actually got here, why I'm even standing up here in the first place. Now, I will forewarn everyone here, it's not the nicest story, it's not the prettiest story. Everyone here, I can see, has gone through their fair share of the years. I have not. So what got me here? You know, I think that my relationship with God, it has been one of many ups and many downs. I think that many people in this very building can say the same. We often forget that our relationship with God is not always on the up. It's not always a happy or joyful thing. Sometimes it's questions. If people we knew around us, if they died, why? Or maybe we went through trials or tribulations ourselves. Why did we have to go through these things? So we question. And faith shakes. It does. I think right now, being up here, if it's not clear already, I'm already shaking. But I suppose I'll start with who I am, why I believe, where I came from, the origin story, if you will. As many people know, my name's Zack. My full name is Zachary Neil Whitworth Painter Swayze. Hyphenated. It's very interesting. I got that name because I was adopted by my grandparents. I lived with them basically my whole life. And it's often a very interesting talking point. Oh, well, who's your mom? Oh, it's actually my grandmother. Oh, well, your dad? Nope, that's just my grandpa. And so life has always been a little bit strange. It's always been a bit odd. But when I started asking questions about how I got here, how I even came into this world, I learned some very interesting things. There's a good chance that I would not have been born. I was conceived on a cruise ship in the middle of the Pacific Ocean from a one-night stand. It's not a story like that many people have, like a loving mother or father. I just didn't have those things. I came from a place that is not often thought about, but many people go through that experience of being born that way. And it's an interesting concept because I hear many people talk about, having a loving family, a father, a mother, people to rely on to support them. For me, it's always been, you have to look at God and you have to rely on Him. And looking at my origin story, I know some may get glossy-eyed on this since I'm a 16-year-old talking to people who are obviously a lot older, a lot more experienced in life. But, I think that it's relevant because we all go through these periods of times in our lives. We've all gone through them where faith wanes, trials hit. Like I said, I've gone through my own fair share. And, I was thinking about another thing that I was going to bring up. How important it is to realize how much we have to give, but how much we are also worth. One thing that I will say, the reason why I said that another big part of me being here is that I was almost aborted. Why bring that up? God saved me. When considering life is such a precious thing. We don't understand how precious it is until we live it. Parents will often say that their greatest pride and joy is their children because they get to watch them grow up. They get to watch them have life, live it, be happy, and enjoy it. I almost didn't get that, but God saved me. And He did it again because my mother, she went to the hospital when she knew that she was pregnant. And they did the normal checkups on me to see if I was going to be okay or not, did the normal things. And the doctors found something. They found something that required surgery on me. They said that I would have died. I wouldn't have made it outside the womb. And so they basically called in and said, well, we have to get you ready for surgery because, well, your baby's going to die. That could have been it, right? But the surgery never even happened. Well, you might be asking, well, how is that? Well, you see, what they found was a major heart defect. That means if your heart doesn't work, then you're probably going to die. That was me. I was going to die. So they rechecked my heart the day they were supposed to have the surgery. Double-checked what they saw, triple-checked. and the major heart defect that I had just a few days ago, it wasn't there. They checked me. They checked what the original scan was. It was there. It was right there. And then, like I said, 2 or 3 days later, they checked. Nothing. Isn't that just another miracle of life? Protection from getting aborted. Protection from a heart defect that would have killed me. And then when I was brought into this world, my beginnings weren't that nice either. I've heard the stories that I went into the ER almost, 2 or 3 times each week or month. It was constant problems. I was almost dead there, dying. Life was never a given thing. It was always something that was on the edge for me, all the way at that young age. Then, of course, I started living with my grandparents. Things got a lot better. And I was raised in Seventh-day Adventist education. And I was taught a lot of my morals and values by my grandparents. They stood up for me when nobody else would. When my mother and father, when my mother decided that it was best for me to live with my grandparents, I think that was another godsend, because I wouldn't be here for that. My mother at that time had a lifestyle that wasn't compatible with having a child. She was into many things that probably would have gotten me killed early on in my life. Once again, God had a plan. Each time, this is barely even till I was 3 or 4. The roads that could have happened from there. Life was so easily could have been taken away. But it wasn't. Because like I said, God had a plan. God knew that there was a purpose. And God knows that there's a purpose for each one of us. And just looking at that little early life section, there were so many what ifs. There's so much. And then you roll into the next period of my life, starting kindergarten. Starting school should be a nice thing for many children, Oh, well, I'm getting to meet new people, get to make friends, get to learn things. For me, it wasn't so nice. Again. For me, it was littered with bullying, abuse, and some other harder pills to swallow. It was never easy. Throughout the years, I remember coming home from school almost each day with a bloody nose because of how bad I was sometimes beaten by people that I knew at school. I remember one time in particular, this was around 4th grade. I remember simply standing up in the middle of the gym, kind of off to the side, talking with a bunch of my friends. One of the particularly bad bullies came up to me, and I didn't know who it was at the time. They were behind me. They said my name, didn't recognize the voice, And when I turned around, they had slammed a basketball as hard as they could into my face. And the next thing I remember, I was in the bathroom and people were wiping my face. Apparently, I had a concussion. That was the final straw, and I moved schools. But you see, the problem is that when you switch schools, especially halfway through the year, even though if you didn't have many friends, you know no one. You're restarting it all from scratch once again. And so coming into a new school, a public school, in the halfway mark of the year, while everyone already knows each other, everyone already has friends, you're the only Christian there in your class. How do you make friends? Because that was a whole experience that I didn't quite know. The friends that I had were because, bullies had picked on all of us, so we had to band together and kind of just stick by each other. Oh, I know you because, I know your bully and your bully bullies me. That was the kind of lifestyle it was. So in fourth grade, the halfway point of fourth grade and on, I was in public school. And it was a new experience. You go from learning about God in school to not learning about him. But I didn't let go of my faith. I didn't stop. I still believed in God. In fact, God was the only thing that was really keeping me going at this point. Because, the people around you, you lose faith in them. I didn't trust anyone. I had trust issues. I'll be the first to admit it. After all of that, I still do. But God was the only thing in my life that I could really rely on and count on for hope, that things would actually get better. And when you think that things are going to get better, you often don't know how they're going to get better. You just hope. You pray and you hope. That's what I did. I prayed and I hoped. It's all I could do. So I started making friends. I started going around, meeting new people. And actually, I was known as the kid with the Bible in his pocket at my school there, because I had a green jacket, and I always used to wear it. I wore it for, I think, 2 to 3 years. And right here, it had a pocket. I kept a Bible in it, and I'd read it sometimes. I'd show others. And it got around that I was the kid with the Bible in the pocket. I still kind of get called that sometimes, every now and then, if I meet those old people, those friends I knew. And then going on from that kind of odd grade school experience, middle school. Middle school was rough because it also happened during COVID. And everything kind of shut down. And see, I was already isolated enough from people. If you don't know, I live in a city called Warren. The only thing in Warren is a school. That's it. And that school is a K through 8 school. It's not even a high school. It's not even for upper grades. That's it. The cities to the north and south, I mean, they got stuff there. So it's not like I had any friends that could come over to my house. It's not like I had really any friends actually at some of the classes that I was taking. There's just no one. But there was always God, and I could always go to church. But during middle school, when COVID happened, I started getting really isolated because I wasn't able to go to church. I wasn't able to go to school, and I wasn't able to see my friends. I wasn't able to do many of the things that kept me together, if you will. And it led me to a dark place, often darker than most, because I dealt with the problems that I believed that I wasn't good enough. I wasn't just cut out for things. And it was for many reasons. At the old Adventist school that I went to, I was told by their principal that I was no longer a good fit for their church or their school. I was told that I didn't fit in. Oh, well. So I guess I internalized it. So I never made the attempt to fit in. I mean, sure, I tried, but only a little bit, because I was afraid that I was going to get that same cold shoulder that I did. And like I said, during the pandemic, that was the cold shoulder that I got. Everything closed. So it was rough. But I remember doing one thing that kept me going. It was prayer. That was the only thing that kept me going through that whole time. When I didn't have any of the church members to rely on, it was prayer that kept me going. I'd go outside and I'd sit for probably 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes each day, each morning. And I'd just pray as much as I could. Sometimes it'd be with tears in my eyes. Sometimes it'd be, anger. Sometimes it'd be frustration. Sometimes it would be, I can't take it anymore. It was everything. Because there was no one but God in my life. And I went to Africa very recently. And I've never seen people with stronger faith. Even more faith than just believing in him for everything. The reason why I bring it up is because their stories are almost as similar. They come from rough regions. I was there, I saw it. Villages that were desecrated, no running water. I mean, everyone's drinking out of bottled water that you have to import from the capital that's 24 hours away via bus. Oftentimes we forget just how important faith is, especially to other people. Sometimes faith is the only thing that keeps people going. Faith in God, faith that there's something better. There's a quote that's a very interesting quote to me, is that Jesus died for our sins. He died for us to give us life. But to give us hope, he rose. It's that same faith that is such a powerful driver of so many people. And one of the more interesting stories from Africa that really helped boost my own faith there was a bus driver, and he was driving the bus. Now, these buses are just packed full of people. What you're normally thinking of when you think of a bus, you think there's maybe, 2 or 3 people to a seat, average things. But they were stuffing around 6 to 8 people per seat. Everyone's sitting on each other's laps. Everyone's laying on each other. Just cramming as many people in there as possible. And there's a sticker that hung on the top. And it was just a normal insurance advertisement. But it was a very interesting one. It said, "God hates corruption. Report corruption to your local authorities." And I thought it was the funniest thing. God hates corruption. Report corruption to the local authorities. Such an odd thing to have in a bus. Just a normal bus sticker that's on the roof of it. And I got to talking with the bus driver and the guy sitting next to him. They take shifts because over there buses run nonstop. And so they have to have 2 people in the front in order for them to be able to continue on for 24-hour cycles. And we got talking onto the point of religion. And religion in this country, Tanzania, in Zanzibar, this was where the bus driver was from, 99.98% of people are Muslim. Christianity is not heard of, really. I asked the bus driver, we were talking about religion, and he was a Christian. I didn't know this. But he was a Christian, and we started talking about things, and we started talking about faith. Started asking him, well, why did he believe? He tapped the sticker, and he said, if God hates corruption, God must be a pretty cool guy. Say what you want to say about that guy, but at least he's like, well, if God hates corruption, I guess he's pretty cool, man. I guess that means he must be like me. His faith was just in a sticker, and yet he had faith that God existed, and he had faith that God would protect him. That's crazy. Here in the United States, here in almost every Western country, it's almost like we're looking for answers through things. Like when people get cancer, when people are diagnosed with terminal illness, when people die, when people suffer around us, we often look for one of these answers on saying, well, why? Why did it happen? And we question our own faith. These people don't question their faith. And I think it's quite astonishing to see it. They believe with such a firm heart and a firm mind in their beliefs. And I tried taking that to heart. How can you live a life of complete faith? Our whole thing is to walk by faith. Walk by faith and believe in God. Believe in Jesus and his sacrifice for us. And so, I guess to say my testimony, to really put it into words, other than just a bunch of congealed stories that hold almost no meaning apart, I guess it's just faith. Faith alone. Faith is the biggest component to our lives. And we often lose faith. Whether it be through the smallest difficulty or the biggest difficulty. Sometimes we lose faith. But faith should be the burning fire in our hearts. We should want to be on fire with faith. We should want to do things through faith. And I can say that through my life, at least, through the many difficulties, the things I've faced, through bullying, through almost dying many times, like in Africa when I got really sick, or the time that I was cave exploring and I almost dropped around 40 feet down. But luckily there was a man who grabbed my arm last second, picked me up, and he was like, "Watch your step." That's all he said. He said, "Watch your step." It's like, "Oh, okay. Thanks." Through times where I've gotten so sick where you're almost passing out, when you have temperatures of 104 degrees and you're sitting at a Denny's and you're almost passed out and you're waiting on your medications to come. And your only thought is, "Oh, well, God, if it's your will that I live, then it's your will." You have to live by faith. You have to live in the assurance that God loves you and he will take care of you no matter what, no matter the circumstance, because we all have value. Each one of our lives he is directly involved in, day by day, week by week, minute by minute. And I think we take it for granted sometimes. We don't really, truly understand how much God does for us. The people that he puts in our lives, the events that we go through. And so I guess to wrap this all up, I'm here because without God, I wouldn't be here. Yeah. God's the answer. That's your point. That's it. That's the only thing. God lives. I guess one last word I want to say. I suppose I should also close with a prayer, because that's the only way I'm actually standing. I think I would have fainted by now if it wasn't. With faith alone, we have to walk. You know, we look in the Bible sometimes and we see these great miracles. Like in Sabbath school today, we were talking about Elijah. You know, the prophets of Baal, they were doing all these rituals on top of a altar trying to get something to happen. And yet Elijah prayed, column of fire came down and smote even water, the sacrifice and the whole thing. We live in a time period in which we don't really get to see that. So we have to live by faith that God is true. We have to live by faith that God still works, and he works in that same manner, but only if we believe. Would you all bow your heads with me in prayer? Dear Heavenly Father, I came into this unprepared. I should have probably prepared more. But I hope that the words that I said about faith and living by your word, Lord, I hope it inspires people to have more faith in you. Because you are so good, and you are involved in all of our lives, and you help protect us. You guide us onto paths that we may not be able to see the end of, but you do. You know what will be best for us. Lord, I don't know what plans you have for any of us in this room. I don't know where we will be going. I don't know where we will find ourselves through health struggles, financial struggles, through it all. But Lord, I know that you'll take care of us. You'll take care of us through thick and thin. And I know that no matter what, our guardian angels, you'll send them, will be walking right by us. They'll make sure that we find our way back home to you, Lord. Lord, please guide us all. In your heavenly name, amen.